Okay, we're now on to the basic overhead cast. Probably my favourite cast of all. It's a great cast for creating line speed. You can be very accurate, and with practice, of course, we can get great distance with this one. But I'm going to look at it in its basic form here today. I'm going to go through the cast stage by stage, break it up, then put it all together again at the end. There's a lot of very key principles with this. There's timing, there's angles of the rod, and when to put the power in. So we're going to go right from the very start. I like my thumb on top of the handle, very important. My thumb does quite a lot of work during the cast. It acts like a brake on the back cast, and I push through my thumb on the forward cast. So I like my thumb on top just to start with. So starting the cast from the very beginning, it's very important to have the rod tip right on the water's surface, very important. What you want to avoid doing, and I've seen this many times, is if you start to cast from up here, you've got all this slack line between the rod tip and the water's surface. Makes it very difficult to perform the cast. Before I can get that line moving, my rod's already way up in the air, and it's very, very difficult. It always gives you a very low, inefficient back cast. So it's very important to start with the rod tip nice and low down like so. So starting low, the first stage is very simple. Peel some line off the water before we accelerate into our back cast. Now the reason for that, a couple of things. Number one, you don't want to spook the fish. If I sort of get in there and suddenly go, right, I'm going to whack this and rip that line off the surface there, you can see the spray. I'm going to spook every fish in the vicinity. Not a good way to start. And of course, the other thing is it loads the rod a little bit too quickly. So what we need to do is slowly peel our line off, lifting the rod to round about 10 o'clock. I know I'm stopping here, but without stopping, we're then going to accelerate up to about 12:30-ish if we think of this on the clock face. There's the vertical. So our casting stroke on the way back is roughly 10 o'clock to 12:30. This is the secret. The golden rule is wherever the rod tip points, the line will go. We want our line to go nice and high up behind us, so we need to stop the rod tip nice and high. If we get a low back cast, we're going to clip the water behind or clip the vegetation behind, possibly lose our fly. If we get away with it, what tends to happen is the fly shimmies down like that in a bit of a heap and presentation suffers. So it's very important to get the height into that back cast. So we start low, peel some line off, accelerate up and stop. Here's the secret. Thumb on top, it's acting like a brake and stopping the rod. Quite a positive stop there. Very important. The problem here, of course, is our wrist. We all have a wrist, and it's designed to do this at the end of the arm. But when the wrist takes over, we end up with the rod tip coming too far down behind us, like so, and we get that low back cast. Very important to stop up high, then the cast has only got to come downhill on the way forward. It's much more efficient. You've heard me say the pause there, very important to stop between back cast and forward cast. So up, stop, tap. Very brief pause. If you want to think of it when you're actually making a cast, it depends on how fast the line is moving, how long you pause, and how long a line you've got, of course. But a little sort of tick-tock movement, tick and tock, is often quite a good way to learn the pause. So lift slowly, up, stop, and then our forward cast is a nice little tap forward like so. Up, stop, push with my thumb, drive the rod tip forward with a positive stop, round about 10:30. Again, that golden rule of wherever the rod tip points, the line will go. Really important here, because if I bring the power on the rod tip too far, the line comes crashing in. We want to avoid that. This helps create the all-important tight loop going forward there. I'm stopping the rod nice and high. Stop the rod high, and then we just drift down with it nice and slowly like so. So it's lift slowly, up, stop, tap forward, drift down like so. Do this in real time, having the rod tip right on the water's surface, peel the line off, stop, little tap forward. Another interesting way of looking at this, if you're not too keen on maybe memorizing the clock face and thinking of the angles, is watch that line in the air. Watch how it's moving. There's our back loop and there's our forward loop. The most efficient casts are nice tight loops, like so. The energy is concentrated, it's going where we want it to go, it's more accurate. If I come too far back and too far forward, I open up that loop. Doesn't matter how hard I hit this, it'll shimmy down in a wiggly mess at the end. You can see that there, presentation, terrible. But if I just look after the angles of the rod, stop the rod tip nice and high there and there, I'm getting a nice high back cast, nice tight loop, backwards and forwards, which cuts through the air, like so. So watch your loops. Avoid putting too much power into this. Nice and gently, let the rod and line do the work. Nice modern carbon rods like this are nice and easy to cast, nice and slow and smooth, putting the power in at just the right times, a little flick up there, little tap forward there. So that's our basic overhead.